Welcome back to the Dreamers Podcast. It's a new year, a fresh chapter, and we're starting 2026 strong. As always, I'm Asfan Musa, your co-host, and our goal remains the same to inspire the next generation of students. And this year, we will be bringing a lot more guests to our podcast and introducing them to highlight the journeys of them and inspire the next generation.
I'm your other co-host, Munir Rahman, and today we're joined by Dr. James McDeavitt, Executive Vice President and Dean of Clinical Affairs at Baylor College of Medicine. He's a physician leader with more than 80 published works. Dr. McDeavitt has been the forefront of guiding academic medicine through major healthcare crises over the past decade, including leading an academic medical institution through one of the most uncertain periods in modern medicine. Dr. McDeavitt, welcome to the Dreamers Podcast.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll go straight into the first segment, which is all about the beginning, where you were in your early student age, student career, as well as like early physician career. When you think back to yourself as a student or early physician, how did you define success at that stage of your life? And in what ways has that definition changed as you have gained experience and perspective?
Well, I will start off by torpedoing my credibility for the rest of this interview. Because I came out of high school, went to college. I was a freshman in college.
Correct.
And I was a math computer science major.
Oh,
And
wow.
Loved math, loved computer science. But in that day, you're way too young to remember this. You wrote programs by punching each line onto a key card. Your program was a stack of cards that might be 2 or 3 feet thick.
Oh, wow.
I'd write a program, get on my bicycle, ride across campus to the compiler, hand it to a woman behind a glass curtain, and wait for an hour or so to get the printout to see if the program worked or not.
Correct.
But really enjoyed that process of algorithmic thinking and thought this is really a lot of fun. But then I paused and said, but computers are fun, but there's no way anybody will ever make a living doing this. Now, this was before the PC. This was before, obviously, a lot of things have happened. It turns out
Since
many
then.
people did make a living in computers. But it tells you something about my ability to look into the future. I changed majors, majored in zoology at Duke undergrad with the intention to go to medical school. So that was the first step in my journey.
And what made you choose zoology, or what made you switch from that to zoology?
I was science oriented, like a lot of people that are going to medical school. And I think today there's a little more emphasis on balance and having a spread of a broad liberal education. I think admissions committees tend to value that a little more than they did back in my era. But back then, you were a chemistry major, you were a biology major, you tended to major in one of the hard sciences. So I like biology, I like zoology, I like science.
That was like a big pivot from math and computer science to biology.
Yeah, it was a big change. Well, the bigger pivot was I actually finished medical school. Finished my undergraduate degree. And had not gotten to the medical school yet. So summer of after graduation, I'm still without a job. And I worked in theater for many years, before college, through college. And from those connections, I got hired to work at the Spoleto Festival, which is a big arts festival in Charleston, South Carolina. So I went and worked as a techie, loading in shows and hanging lights and doing sound. From that, I got hired to be the technical director of the Joffrey Ballet Company and go on tour with the Joffrey Ballet.
Oh, wow.
So I was this close to becoming a roadie. But then I got into medical school in July of that summer and pivoted.
So the same year?
Going to medical school. So.
Nice. Was that a passion project that you wanted to do on the side, getting into arts and...
Yeah, I was always interested from like the 8th grade on. It was just something I did growing up and was pretty deeply involved in it, enjoyed it, and it was something I could see myself doing. And frankly, it served me well. I did a little acting. I was on TV for a while, did a little kids' TV show. But a lot of being a doctor is also, I wouldn't say it's acting so much, but it is engaging. It's understanding where people are coming from. It's being able to communicate effectively to people. So I think some of those skills actually served me well as I moved through my career.
That's very cool, actually. Yeah, very cool.
A lot of doctors have said that surgery or medicine in general is like an orchestra. So I feel like you can relate with that.
Yeah, I'd say it's either an orchestra, and some systems function like orchestra. Everybody's got their part to play, and there's a conductor that kind of keeps everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
Some organizations are more like jazz ensembles. Everybody's playing their own part, and you sort of hope that it all works together and sounds good at the end. So it sort of depends on the organization.
Great. And you decided to train in physical medicine and rehab. Why that specifically out of all the fields in medicine?
Yeah, it was sort of mission work back then because I was raised in North Carolina, and when I was in medical school, there was one physiatrist in the state. And for your listeners that don't know, physical medicine rehabilitation is a specialty that focuses on, my part of it, people with disabling illness and injury, brain injury, spinal cord injury, strokes, amputation. And we manage people. I manage people from the time they got out of the ICU, out of the hospital, and then reintegration to the rest of their life. So really enjoyed that work. But at the time, growing up in North Carolina, I didn't know the specialty existed. As I said, there was one physiatrist in the state, literally. And I met a intern when I was actually a fourth-year medical student that was coming to Houston, ironically, to Baylor, to do his residency. That's how I found that it was a specialty. And in medical school, I liked everything. There wasn't any one thing that I was overwhelmingly attracted to. But again, I had a personal experience that when I was younger, I used to rock climb a lot.
He's into it.
Well, it's a terrible story. I was up climbing with my best friend, and then the next week went back to college, and he went climbing back to the place we usually went climbing and fell. And something called zippering, where you fall and your protection pulls out on the way down. He ended up falling about 70 feet, landed on his ankles, crushed his ankles, and had a spinal cord injury.
Wow.
So when I was a sophomore in college, I spent a lot of time in our hometown hospital and in the rehab hospital, and got to know the staff, liked the environment, sort of liked that atmosphere, and then met this intern during my fourth year of medical school and made that connection and said, well, maybe I should look at that as a specialty. So that was sort of my genesis of how I got interested.
Like a personal reason behind it too. Yeah, it's actually beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
And would you say your past experiences or overall training in physical medicine and rehab has trained you to take on executive roles like the one you have had today?
I think it actually has, for a couple of reasons. One is people that train in PM&R, they are by nature very functionally oriented. So it is all about solving problems and taking disparate pieces and trying to make them work together for the betterment of the patient. So I think I tend to have a very functional outlook on things. It's also a very team-based specialty. There's not like one person that's predominant in the team. The doctor's really important, but so is the physical therapist and occupational therapist and speech therapist and pathologist or psychologist and social worker. There's a very large team, and recognizing how to work in that team and leverage strength of a team is important. And third, it's a specialty in tertiary quaternary academic medical centers that is somewhat uniquely positioned to interact with all specialists in all sorts of different areas. So it gave me a really broad overview of a health system and the way health system worked. Wasn't the intention, but it turned out to be good preparation for what I ended up doing
Great.
long term.
That's good, yeah.
That's amazing. And if you could speak directly to your younger self at the very start of your medical training, when you must have had some self-doubts or uncertainty moments, what would you want that younger self of what would you want him to understand about the journey ahead of you?
Well, that's a good question. If I could talk to my younger, I should talk to my older self because I still have self-doubts. But I guess one thing I would say is, it's going to be okay. You are on your journey, and gosh, everybody who goes into medical school is typically so hard driving and committed and bright and from the sixth grade on used to sort of being towards the head of their class, feeling a lot of internal pressure to get to the next step. I got to get good grades in high school so I can get into a good college, so I can get into a good medical school, so I can get into a good residency. It never stops. And invariably, there are a few people that sort of sail through things and they get to exactly the college they want and exactly the residency program or medical school, exactly the residency they want. But it's a minority. I mean, typically somewhere along the way, there's a misstep. And I think something I tell my old self, my younger self, is those missteps are okay. And frankly, there's value in the missteps, and I probably learned more from the things that I ended up doing that I didn't necessarily want to do out of the gate. And in retrospect, I'm glad it worked out that way. So I'll give you a quick example. All my failures. I came so close to being Bill Gates, but then decided not to major in computer science in college. Got into medical school late and just missed becoming a roadie. Well, the residency, as I said, I applied during my 4th year, and at that time, about half the programs in the country were in the match, and about half weren't. The match was a relatively new thing, and I was late to the game. Well, I didn't match. And including at the Baylor College of Medicine, which was one of the 4 programs I applied to back then, I was rejected by Baylor. So as I've told many people, this has been part of a 25-year strategy to exact revenge on Baylor, and it's all going according to the plan. But because of that misstep, I mean, I was devastated at the time. I have failed in what I was trying to do.
Yeah. Those failures made you a better professional, in your opinion, you think?
Well, absolutely. So, because the consequence of that was I ended up doing a very academically rigorous med-peds internship that was way more challenging than anything I probably would have chosen for myself at that time, but I think turned me into a better doctor. I found a position in a residency program that I loved and that I'm still close to everybody in that program today, and I got exceptional training. But it also created a gap year for me, the timing of when I found that position. So I got to go to rural Guatemala and work as a primary care doctor in a small town for a year, which was the single best year of training that I've ever received. I came back from that year confident, much more sure of myself than I would have if I had just gone straight through. So I would very clearly tell my younger self, those missteps are okay, they're actually valuable, and it's all going to work out.
What a beautiful answer.
Advice, yeah.
Yeah,
Very shows a lot of resilience too in your story. Like you never gave up. Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
very important part of that story.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Thank you for that answer. We'll move on to our next segment.
Now I want to talk about COVID-19, especially Hurricane Harvey, where you were leading in a moment. It was like no clear playbook and a lot of misinformation. How does experiences specifically influence you, how you approach large-scale problems today?
That is a great question. I mean, COVID was you all lived through it. I don't need to tell you. It was a life-changing event for a lot of people in a lot of ways. And I remember sitting at Baylor as the pandemic was starting to grow. And I don't know if you looked at the Johns Hopkins map about where the active cases were in the U.S., but initially there were like 4 locations, 4 red dots around the country. And at that point, we thought, well, we'll contact trace our way out of this. We'll sequester those cases, and public health will be able to get this under control, which in retrospect was incredibly naive. And then in Houston, we had the first cases were reported, but we were told, well, it's okay because they were all on this same cruise in Egypt. So we know where they got it, and they've been isolated, so we'll keep it isolated. So we said, well, great, maybe it'll just stain those people that were on the cruise. And then the Houston Rodeo happened, and there was a patient who showed up at the Houston Rodeo who had no known prior contact. And that's when I knew this was a significant problem that was not going to be controlled. And within 2 or 3 days, that was the day the world shut down. The rodeo shut down, the NBA shut down. That was the beginning of everything starting to spiral. About 2 or 3 days later, our chairman of medicine called me and said, I've got bad news. 4 of our hospitalists just tested positive for COVID.
Wow.
And it's hard to keep this perspective now, but remember back then, we were hearing about Lombardy, Italy, and the health system collapsing in a modern Western city. We were hearing from New York City, where there were people being managed on ventilators by psychiatry residents because there weren't enough doctors to take care of the patients. There were healthcare providers dying from the virus. So we didn't know what it was. We didn't know how bad it was going to be. And talking about managing through times of uncertainty, we had to manage through it, but we didn't have the luxury of just shutting down and going home because we had to take care of patients. We had to continue to educate trainees. So it was a very, very challenging time, but taught me a lot because I was the incident command center commander during that time. about pulling people together, gathering information, being focused around a common goal, and getting an organization to work in unison around a common goal. It taught me a lot about communication in uncertainty. And during the pandemic, you can still find it on the internet someplace. Every week I wrote a message out to Baylor, trying to anticipate, what's going on, what's the data look like, but also what are people worried about. And I got up at 3:30 in the morning every Wednesday, got a cup of coffee, sat down at my computer by 4, looked at the data, thought about what the message ought to be for that week, and consistently communicated out to the community during that time. And I think that was successful, both my communications and the communication of our team, because it was timely and accurate. I think it was empathetic. I think we really tried to meet people where they were. Yeah. And I acknowledged what we knew and more importantly, what we didn't know. And I think during the pandemic, that was one of the biggest mistakes people tended to make, was sort of overselling what they knew and coming across with greater certainty, which then eroded trust. And I think we're still living through some of the consequences of that today.
Yeah. And also, because I remember when the Ebola outbreak first happened, it was very isolated. So I feel like when COVID first came in, people thought it would be like Ebola. It was very isolated. It'll be contained easily. But it spread like super fast. I remember end of 2019, we kind of were hearing all the news, and then March of 2020 was our graduating year for high school. I remember school shut down, everything shut down. It was like very new experience for everyone.
Correct.
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, another big thing that happened with a lot of other institutions was staff shortage, because a lot of people started quitting. Did something like that happen at Baylor?
Yeah, well, we had a lot of staffing challenges.
Yeah.
Both because people were sick. They couldn't work because they were sick. People wanted to be home with their families, so we had some issues. So yeah, absolutely, it was a challenge maintaining staffing, particularly in the hospitals.
Oh, that's good. You got through it though. Good to see it. And now I want to talk about when stakes were really high and there's a lot of pressure, and decisions weren't always shaped by science, by political influence. How did you remain grounded and make choices aligned that were aligned with your core values specifically?
Yeah, trying to think of some examples. Hopefully, I always make choices that are aligned with my core values. I think that's sort of who I am. So I don't think I do it by design. I think I do it by reflex more than anything. I digress for just a second. Lessons from COVID, and this is actually a pre-COVID lesson. I wrote something a long time ago, and again, it's still out on the internet someplace. It's called The Magical 10th or something.
Okay.
But it was about family dinner time. And the piece was that my wife and I, when our kids were little, committed that we're going to have dinner together as a family every night. And we did. And 9 of those dinners, you'd sit and nobody would talk. And how was school? That was fine. What's new? Nothing. No real communication occurred. But then you got to the 10th dinner, and then something magical happens. You notice a nuance, somebody communicates, somebody brings something up. And the point, obviously, of the piece was you can't schedule that 10th dinner. You have to live through the 9 to earn the 10th.
Correct.
Because it's about establishing trust, building relationships, and creating that environment where you can have that 10th magical dinner. I think for me that's been foundational, sort of that observation, because I think it relates to teaching students, managing employees, dealing with patients, dealing with colleagues, dealing with affiliate health systems. It is all about investing time in building trust-filled relationships. So when problems arise, when there is a crisis, when you've got something you have to deal with, you're doing it with a group of people that you already have a little bit of history, you've got a little bit of trust, you've already built good communication, and you can build on that base. If you don't have those relationships built with whatever community you're talking about, and a crisis emerges, then it's infinitely more difficult to sort of get together and respond in an emergency.
That's a very good example. I feel like the whole thing is trust is earned, not given. And you have to you can't force it in either. So
That has to be.
Yeah. And then the last question I have is, have you helped How have you helped Baylor specifically through a period where healthcare and research have faced declining funding and reduced public support, also ensuring the institution continues to adapt to scientific, technological, and clinical trends?
Well, I've been here for 12 years. And I mentioned, or we talked about an orchestra, we talked about a jazz ensemble. I worked for a large health system in North Carolina. It was an orchestra. It was very well orchestrated. Everybody knew what piece to play. Baylor is a jazz ensemble. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. There's lots of innovation. There's lots of creativity. But it also requires that moves in generally the same direction. So I think that's been part of my role at Baylor, is to think about how we take advantage of this innovation and creativity, yet move the organization in a deliberate direction. And a specific example I can give you is Baylor's unusual in that, I mean, all schools are dependent on affiliate hospitals, because that's where the students train, the residents, that's where a lot of the clinical research is done. Baylor's unusual in that we've got 7 major clinical affiliates. And they're all fabulous organizations. Texas Children's Hospital, Baylor St. Luke's Medical Center, Ben Taub and the Harris Health System, the Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center, the first VA medical student relationship in the country, Children's Hospital San Antonio, Menninger Clinic, TIER, all great lights out organizations with their own boards, with their own management structure, with their own culture, with their own priorities. So as a college, to think about how you maintain meaningful relationships with such a broad, diverse group of powerful organizations has been something I've worked hard at. And again, getting back to my family dinner time, it's been a little bit about building relationships, but it's also been thinking about how do we, Baylor, drive strategic value to our health system partners, and how do we thoughtfully think about deriving value from those relationships. And that's been a big part of what I've done. And that's been both by, again, the relationship building, but also developing tools and processes and being fairly systematic about our approach to those relationships.
Yeah, I didn't know Baylor has 7 institutions.
Yeah, me
That's actually
neither.
really very impressive.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's talk about herding cats.
And then we can move on to the next segment.
Great. And like you said, I do want to bring some of the things back that you've written on social media, or something that I found was you wrote about family presence and the idea that magic cannot be scheduled. I think we briefly already talked about it. So how did you learn to protect what matters most while holding roles that could easily consume all of your time and energy?
Probably have not done it as well as I could have at certain points in my career. I also think, I mean, looking back, and I am all for work-life balance. I don't want to come out against work-life balance, because I think it's a fabulous and important thing. I think you do have to recognize that during different points of your career, the balance is not always the same. There are times in your career you have to sort of buckle down and get things done, and a little bit of delayed gratification that when you get through that. So I'd caution people a little bit not to be too obsessed with work-life balance, having the perfect work-life balance at every single point of your life, because it doesn't work that way. That's one observation. I forgot the question you asked me. Now, what would you just?
How did you learn to protect what matters most?
I think I've been pretty good at carving out sort of non-negotiables. So family dinner time was one.
Yeah.
To this day, my kids are grown and gone now, but still have dinner with my family whenever possible. In 1996, I'd been out of residency for a while, started to gain weight and was out of shape. And 1996, I started exercising. And I would get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I've done different things. I've gone to the gym. And I'm not terribly athletic, and I'm not terribly good at anything.
You look in shape, yeah.
But from 1996 on, I've been very consistent about carving out that time at the beginning of the day to do something, check that box.
Nice.
So important for my mental health and my physical
Very
health. I think that's been important to set that time aside. And I was asked this question by a resident forum at one of our national meetings here recently. What advice would you give to people out there? I think one piece of advice is that, I mean, everybody's busy, everybody works hard, everybody sacrifices. I think it's important as an individual that you carve out some time to do something that is unapologetically just for you. Not for your wife, not for your kids, not for your friends, just something that's important for you. And I don't care what it is. It could be reading, could be playing an instrument, could be going for a walk, could be playing golf or tennis or whatever it is you do. But if you think about it, I mean, say you play golf and 4 hours out of a week. On a percentage basis, that's like 3% of your waking hours or something like that. I can't do the math. It's such an infinitesimally small amount of time. But I do think it's important to have that time where you are just taking care of you. And then you can spend the rest of the 96% of your time taking care of everybody else.
I feel like personally for me, routine is very important because that's how I get through my day. It kind of helps me plan accordingly throughout the whole day rather than having all like a mess in your head.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, you can't have a routine. You don't want 15 things in that routine either. I think you've got to prioritize the maybe 2 things that are important to you and just make sure you've checked those 2 boxes every day.
And I love what you said about having family dinner time, because that's something that my dad has also put a lot of emphasis on throughout our life. And I feel like back when I was a kid, I didn't understand the importance of it as much. But now that I'm growing older and getting into more professional world, I can see why this was so important.
Yeah, your dad's a very wise man.
Thank you for that. My second question for this segment was, many aspiring physicians worry that choosing impact or leadership means sacrificing personal life. I know we talked about not having the perfect work-life balance throughout your life. There will be some times where you have to sacrifice. What have you learned about setting boundaries without losing momentum or purpose?
Yeah, another really good question. Well, first of all, it's just not physician moving into leadership roles and sacrificing. It could be physician being really committed to a subspecialty, being the one person that does this thing, and having an obligation to a community that is sort of all-encompassing. There are a lot of things in medicine that will take you away from other things in your life. Medicine has always had that element to it. I think if I were to be honest, it probably will to a degree. I don't think medicine, particularly medicine, if you're going to practice it in a sort of mission-based calling sort of way, is something that lends itself to a banker's hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, no messy entanglement after hours. I think regardless of what you do, if you're going to do it well, it does require a degree of sacrifice. So I would go into it with that recognition. And I think in my own career, I've gradually moved into leadership roles over many, many years. It was never a step off where I didn't become clinical and became a leader. It was very incremental. But there were sacrifices along that way. I did not do things because I was engaged in taking advantage of opportunities and looking for the next thing and being open to what was presented to me.
Amazing answer. Thank you. And you have had a long career in medicine. You must have had some times where you were on maybe the pressure of having burnout. How did you overcome that pressure?
Yeah, actually many times. It's just not medicine, it's life. You got ups and downs, you got highs and lows. I often reflect on, a low time years and years ago, I was talking to a colleague of mine. He actually wasn't a physician, and was sort of venting about, poor me, and this is really difficult. And he made the observation to me that I've repeated many times, is, it's sort of like the weather. Sometimes the weather's beautiful, sometimes it's terrible, sometimes it's just okay. But when it's bad, it's going to be good. And when it's good, it's going to be bad. So keeping that perspective, not engaging in sort of a sense of learned helplessness that this is all pervasive, that it's going to be forever, I think has been an important perspective to maintain.
Love that. Perfect. We'll move on to our last segment now.
And now we're kind of approaching, I guess, the end of the podcast. I want to talk about your journey specifically, your early days in 1979 as a student at University of North Carolina to now executive vice president at Baylor College of Medicine. What aspect of your impact are you most proud of that wouldn't appear on a resume or titles?
What am I proud of that, I'd have to say fundamentally, you often ask that, talk about the guy on his deathbed and it doesn't talk about he wishes he spent more time at the office.
Yep.
It's that sort of question. I think I am proudest of not my work so much, but my family. I've got 2 daughters. They're both successful. They're both well-adjusted. They're both married. They have children that are seem to be coming along nicely. So if I look at the legacy I leave behind, that's probably the single most important legacy I could have left. Nothing that I've done at work. But
That's beautiful.
That makes you a better doctor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Also, they always say, whenever a guy has a nice family, he's a wealthy man. Not by, financial statement, but, just wealth in general, in life, I would say.
Correct.
Very wealthy man. And then, mostly for students' advice, a lot of students misunderstand about building a meaningful and fulfilling career in medicine, whether it's, about numbers or whether they think it's too hard to even approach. How would you address those misunderstandings?
Well, first of all, medicine in general. I've got a daughter who's a physician. She's actually on faculty at Baylor. And when she got into medical school, a number of my colleagues, I said, "Oh, my daughter got into medical school." The most common response I got was, "Well, didn't you try and talk her out of it?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, no, I actually am proud of her. I'm glad she chose to go in that direction." And they were speaking from the lens of, this is frustrating, we're all burnt out, there's so much administrivia we've got to deal with, why would anybody go into medicine? But when you look at a career in medicine, there are so few things you do in your life where you can intimately enter someone else's life on a very deep and personal way, make a big impact on their life, and be relatively well paid to do it. I mean, what a great gift to be able to do that as a career. And frankly, if physicians got paid half as much as they do now, I hope they don't, but if they did, it would still be a great job and a great opportunity. So I think it's important to have that perspective. First of all, it's not about money, because I think the money is going to be less and less as time goes by. That's sort of the nature of the beast. It's about the patients, it's about the relationships, and I would just encourage you to make sure this is something you really, truly enjoy, so you're pursuing it for the right reasons.
I'm glad that you bring up the fact, because nowadays a lot of doctors, I'm pretty sure they must have had experiences that leads them to say this, but a lot of them try to talk you out of medicine, because they say they've gone through the whole career and they realize how time-consuming it is of a career. But like you said, if you're really passionate about it, I think, and you have a calling in this field, then I think this is the right choice for those students out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it'll be a fascinating time in medicine for the next couple of decades. Obviously, AI is going to be a huge disruptor.
Player.
It's going to fundamentally change the way that healthcare is delivered. It's going to create new opportunities, new jobs, new ways of thinking, new demands on educating the future workforce that we can't even contemplate today. So it's sort of an exciting time to be entering medicine.
Yeah.
And I guess you could view it 2 ways. It's a terrible time to be entering medicine because there's so much uncertainty.
Yeah.
But it's a fabulous time because there's so much promise.
Yeah,
correct.
And I just think for someone that is willing to be flexible and creative, that you can certainly spend 40 years sort of figuring that out and have a great life.
And I feel like passion is a very important part of medicine. If you are going to medicine for other reasons other than you're interested in medicine, it's not going to work out for you. I mean, for example, I was a biology major my freshman and sophomore year, and then I did not want to go to medicine. I was like, med school is not for me. And then I switched to biomedical engineering. I wanted to still kind of be medical based, but I want to switch to engineering. did that at I think our junior year. I wanted to go back to med school because we joined a medical student association. So it was just funny how that journey kind of transitioned. But yeah, I finished my engineering degree and going into medicine. And yeah, same thing with AI. I guess I can kind of talk about the AI. How is Baylor kind of adapting with the whole AI kind of boom bubble that's going around?
Well, everybody's trying to figure it out. It's a huge question. Fundamentally, the biggest things happening within sort of healthcare organizations in AI are related to the electronic medical record and sort of leveraging the mechanics of taking care of a patient, that the system can now listen to you and fill in the notes on the electronic medical record automatically. A huge benefit to
Very
physicians.
helpful.
Those sort of tools are out there. I think all organizations are struggling with their approach to AI and how are they going to integrate it, because it's a moving target at this point. I think something I've tried to preach is, there's this belief that AI will replace people and you'll lose your job.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you'll lose your job to AI, but I think you might lose your job to somebody who knows how to use AI.
Yeah.
That it's very important.
So I would encourage individuals to really think about how they use the existing tools out there to make what they do better.
Yeah.
Not to replace what they do, not to do all the cognitive work of coming up with ideas, but to enhance things to make you more efficient, more productive. I think that's going to be a critical task in the future to leverage AI.
It's like about adapting with the times.
Exactly.
You always have to adapt, especially in medicine.
Especially in medicine, it's a fast-growing, fast-moving field, and I mean, if you're willing to adapt to changes like these, then I think you'll
Very
be
important.
just fine.
And then final question, I want to talk about Baylor College of Medicine and its core principles. How might Baylor differ from other med schools, and what do you guys focus on specifically that sets you apart?
Well, several things. One is Baylor is a interesting blend because it is a private institution. It is a health sciences university, so it is not. There's not an undergraduate school here. It is just a school of medicine. We've got some health professions courses, degrees as well, but we don't have a philosophy department. We don't have a music department. So that frees us up to really focus on healthcare and science. We are not public, but we're deeply embedded in the state of Texas. So a ton of our students come from Texas and stay in Texas, and we feel like that's part of our mission. And Baylor has very, very deep roots in basic science, molecule discovery, particularly the human genome, which, as you may know, when the genome was originally sequenced, it was, I think, James Watson or Crick, I think it was, I always get them confused, I think it was Watson, was the first human being to be sequenced. 11% of that work was done down the hallway here. So we were at ground zero for the genetics revolution. We have the best funded genetics research program in the country right now. If you split it in two, we would have the number one and number two best funded genetics program. So that's a real strong aspect of Baylor. So great basic science, great commitment to the community, and proud that we take care of everybody in Houston. Between the VA and Ben Taub and St. Luke's Hospital and Texas Children's Hospital, there is no person, no human being in Harris County that we don't take care of in one way, shape, or form.
I love to hear
Love that.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. McDeavitt, thank you so much for this conversation. This has been an amazing podcast episode. In my opinion, you gave some really great answers that I'm pretty sure would inspire a bunch of students like ourselves. So thank you so much for coming on.
It was a pleasure speaking with you. I enjoyed it.
I feel very inspired already. And again, to our Dreamers audience listening, as you step into this new year, life is always going to be unexpected. There'll be challenges, but it's important to face them, keep moving forward. And again, we'll see you next time on the Dreamers Podcast.